The crash happens in a fraction of a second. An explosion of carbon fiber, a burst of heat, a sudden silence that follows the impact. Romain Grosjean hits the barrier at 67 Gs, and somehow he walks out of a fireball. Guanyu, slides upside down for hundreds of meters with nothing but a titanium ring protecting his skull. These moments look like the end, but in Formula One, they mark the beginning of a very long night, because when a car becomes carbon fiber confetti, the mechanics don't just fix it, they rebuild the future. A modern Formula One car is a masterpiece of controlled destruction. The entire design philosophy is simple: keep the driver alive no matter what happens to the machine around them. At the heart of that philosophy sits the survival cell, a carbon fiber monocoque that weighs just 35 kilograms and can withstand forces exceeding 50 grams. Two thin composite skins, bonded to an aluminum honeycomb core, form a structure that is twice as strong as steel but 5 times lighter. Kevlar and Xylon panels reinforce the cockpit sides. Everything attached to that survival cell exists for one purpose: to break apart on command. Nose cones crush like accordions. Wings detach cleanly. Suspension components shatter into fragments. The explosion of carbon fiber dust after a crash isn't chaos. It's engineering working exactly as intended, converting kinetic energy into dust within a tenth of a second, rather than transferring it to the driver. And then there's the halo. Since 2018, the titanium halo has been mandatory. It can resist 12 tons of force, the equivalent of a London double-decker bus pressing down on a single point. It is the unsung guardian, the invisible shield that sits above the driver's head and silently says, "Not today." If you want more behind-the-scenes insights into what happens after the crash, subscribe to Daily Apexup, because what you see on track is only half the story. The crash ends, the car is wrecked, but the real race has just begun. As soon as the wreck reaches the garage, mechanics start a strict protocol, stripping parts, photographing every piece, and sending the images to the factory for analysis. Anything that experiences 40 grams must be inspected, because hidden damage can make even intact parts deadly. The next decision shapes the entire night. If the monocoque survives, repairs can happen on site. If not, the team must switch to a spare chassis, already pre-fitted with wiring, sensors, and hydraulics. But the fuel system sits inside the survival cell, so a chassis change becomes a painstaking hours-long puzzle. Rebuilding follows a strict sequence: chassis, front suspension, engine, then rear suspension and gearbox, followed by the floor and bodywork. With 11,000 components, everything must go in the right order. A normal rebuild takes 8 to 12 hours, but Mercedes proved what's possible in 2022 when they rebuilt Lewis Hamilton's car in 3.5 hours. Teams are limited to 60 staff, with 15 to 20 mechanics working on the cars. Curfew rules create restricted periods each weekend, and only 6 exemptions per season exist, often used for crash rebuilds. Under pressure, mechanics describe the work like a qualifying lap: fast, precise, and intense. The crashes that test safety systems define modern F1. In Bahrain 2020, Romain Grosjean hit the barrier at 192 km per hour at a 22-degree angle, generating 67 Gs. The car split in two, but the survival cell held. The halo deflected a guardrail while flames engulfed the wreck for nearly half a minute. Grosjean, once opposed to the halo, later called it the greatest thing the sport ever introduced, saying without it, he wouldn't be able to speak. Then in Silverstone 2022, Guanyu flipped at 160 miles per hour, sliding upside down for hundreds of meters. The roll hoop failed almost instantly, ripped off by Force's FYA crash test requirements. The halo carved 4 to 5 centimeters into the track while protecting his head the entire time. Nothing else stood between him and the ground. Zhou walked away and said simply, "The halo saved me." If you're enjoying this breakdown, hit like and subscribe to Daily Apexup. Every crash has a story, and every rebuild reveals what it really costs to compete in Formula One. The cost of a crash isn't measured in seconds, it's measured in dollars. A complete Formula One car costs around $20.6 million, and the power unit alone accounts for over $18 million of that total. A single front wing with nose cone costs about $141,000. The floor adds another $141,000. The steering wheel alone is $50,000. The cost cap changes everything about how teams approach crash damage because there is no general exemption for repairs. Budgeting for anticipated crashes at the start of each season became mandatory. Andreas Seidel, during his time at McLaren, explained that teams simply have to account for certain crash damage per year before spending anything else. Smaller teams absorb these hits hardest. Mick Schumacher's time at Haas illustrates the pressure perfectly. Gunther Steiner's book puts Schumacher's 2022 crash damage at $2 million total for the season. The Saudi Arabia incident alone cost between $500,000 and $1 million. Monaco added another $500,000 when the car split in two at the swimming pool section. Japan contributed $700,000 more. The Japan crash stands out because of when it happened. Steiner's reaction became legendary when he pointed out it occurred on the in-lap. Wet conditions, but nobody else managed to write off a car while driving back to the pits. Schumacher lost his seat the following year. Williams in 2024 absorbed damage that dwarfed every other team. Nearly $14 million in crash costs accumulated across the season, more than double the second highest team. Franco Colapinto alone accounted for over €5 million of damage across just 9 races. Alex Albon added nearly €5 million, and Logan Sargent contributed €3.8 million before the team fired him mid-season. Brazil Grand Prix weekend alone cost Williams between $2.5 million and $4 million, with 5 front wings, 5 floors, 5 rear wings, 3 gearboxes, 2 engines, and 2 complete chassis destroyed. Team principal James Vowles requested a cost cap exemption from the FIA and was denied. Even top teams feel the pain. Max Verstappen's Silverstone crash in 2021 cost Red Bull $1.8 million. Christian Horner summed up the new reality. An accident like that carries massive ramifications in a budget cap era. And yet, amid the chaos, the mechanics keep the sport alive. Carlos Sainz calls them the true heroes of Formula One, and Charles Leclerc in 2021 showed exactly what he meant. An FP3 crash left his car destroyed with minutes remaining before qualifying. Ferrari mechanics rebuilt everything in time for him to take the grid. Leclerc called it one of the most impressive things he had ever witnessed, describing the pressure of not knowing if he would make it out as one of the most challenging moments of his life. 6th place in qualifying came from that rebuilt car, just 1/10 of a second behind his teammate. $20 million of precision engineering rebuilt in 8 hours under curfew. Pressure defines this job. Every mistake carries the potential to cost a driver a race or a team a championship. And that cycle repeats every time someone finds a wall at 200 miles per hour. Formula One is often celebrated as the pinnacle of speed, but the truth is, it is also the pinnacle of recovery. The real race is not just the one on the track. It is the one in the garage, where the world's most advanced machines are torn apart and rebuilt, where teams fight against time, budget, and the relentless reality of physics. Every crash is a reminder that the sport is built on risk, but it is also built on resilience, on survival cells, halos, and the invisible work of the mechanics who turn disaster into opportunity. Because, in Formula One, the most important victory is not the one that ends the race. It is the one that keeps the driver alive, and then, somehow, gets them back on track again.